Today we're going to be reviewing the Glock 19. There's a lot of reviews out about the Glock 19 on the internet, and many people consider the Glock 19 to be arguably one of the best all-around pistols on the market today. A lot of this stems from news that has been hitting just over the past year. A couple major military organizations have switched over to the Glock 19, starting with the Marine Raiders, or the MARSOC, the Marine Special Forces, have moved from the traditional 45 platform that they used to utilize to the Glock 19. There was also news that the Navy SEALs have moved from their old standby, the SIG P226, to the Glock 19 as well. And we're going to go through some of the reasons why that might have happened and why they might have made that change moving forward. But the one thing I've told for years with people, especially when they're new to getting into shooting and target shooting, is they usually ask, what is the first pistol I should buy? And my answer is always the Glock 19. Now, the only exception to somebody getting the Glock 19 is if they have very large hands. Then I will usually suggest that they go up to the Glock 17, and there's a reason for this. If you have small to average size hands, the Glock 19 fits just right into your hand, especially with the swell in the pistol. However, if you have very large hands, you're going to find that your hand is going to be going off the grip, and you're going to have a hard time charging a new magazine into the weapon. Therefore, the 17 might be a better option for you. But again, I always tell people, start with the 19. If the 17 works better for you, great, go with the 17. But again, the 19 is a great all-around weapon, especially for first-time buyers. The other great thing about a Glock 19 is it tends to hold its value better than most pistols out there today. If you bought the Glock 19, even if you didn't shoot it much at all and had to go sell it, you can typically sell it for pretty close or very close to what you actually paid for the pistol itself, depending upon where you sell it. So again, they hold their value extremely well as well. So what we're going to do today is talk about some of the reasons why the Glock 19, many people consider it to be a superior pistol on the marketplace today. The first part is just the simplicity that comes along with Glocks. Most Glocks have only 34 parts in the pistol. It's a very simple mechanism to utilize within the pistol. And you compare that, for example, to 56 parts that go into the SIG P226 and 52 that go into the 1911. First off, there's a lot of simplicity to what you do here. The other part of this is the amount of steps it takes to fire and make the pistol safe. Now, one of the great things about the striker fire system, and all of these pistols have been safety checked, is all you have to do to actuate it and then make it safe is just simply pull the trigger, and then it simply resets itself. It is a one-step process. So every time you pick up the gun, as long as it's charged, all you have to do is pull the trigger and it fires. Compare that to the multiple step processes you have to take with the 1911 and the P226. So the P226 still has an old trigger system as well as a decocker system. So in many cases, you have multiple options here of how to actuate the pistol. In many cases, it can take up to 2 to 3 steps. So for example, you could fire a simple double action to start with, and then it switches to single action, which again, you have to get used to 2 different types of trigger pulls. The other option is you can simply cock the weapon and fire it, and then once you've fired it, it will hold back and then you have to decock it. That's 1, 2, 3 steps right there. So there's a lot of steps that go on with this. Now, a lot of people would argue, well, you know what, it's a great pistol. People can learn these steps and it becomes muscle memory. Okay, I get it. The challenge is we're talking about pistols here, and most people aren't going to fire the amount of times that a Navy SEAL will fire in training on these pistols. Therefore, having one step as opposed to 2 or 3 steps to operate and make safe makes this option a very good option for people, especially if they're casual shooters using pistols. The other thing that's great about the Glocks are the ability to easily break them down and maintain them. Very simple processes with the pistol. All you have to do is you go forward, you pull off the actual gate here, slide off, and you can access every mechanism within the pistol. And then you can also be back in action literally within a matter of seconds. Very easy to disassemble these. The 1911 and the SIGs are not as easy and not as efficient in the field to do that. So there's also that. as well as the reliability. One of the great things about the Glocks is people commonly say, well, you know what, a Glock is great because I can throw it in my truck, forget about it, or put it somewhere, forget about it, and every time I bring it out and pull the trigger, it's going to go bang. And it's true. There are even people I know, I don't recommend it, but there are people I know who or instructors who will actually shoot Glocks a lot and will not clean them much at all, and continue to say that, you know what, every time they're firing the weapon, it still is highly reliable. So it's a good idea, of course, to clean them every time. I do as well. The point is the reliability is exceptional with these pistols. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is the evolution of where we got to the point of the Glock 19. So the Glock 17, which was the first model that ever came out in 1983, and 1988 was when they came up with the shorter version, which is the Glock 19, which basically is just a shortened down version of the Glock 17. And what was interesting at the time when the Glock 17 came out is when you had the adoption of the M9 or the Beretta 92F in the military, as well as around that time the SIG P226 by the Navy SEALs. And one of the things you'll notice about these old platforms are they're very large pistols compared to, for example, what a Glock 19 is today. So, for example, when you make just a simple size comparison of the Glock 19 to the P226, you can notice a significant difference in the size of the pistol. The M9 is even more noticeable. Even the Glock 17, when you stack the two up, you can see there is a size difference here, and we're going to talk about the benefits of that in a moment. There's also a weight difference as well. So when you look at, for example, the Glock 19 by weight, you're talking about a pistol that comes in at about 1 pound 5 ounces. Compare that, for example, to the Glock 17, which is only marginally more at 1.65 ounces. But when you compare that to the SIG P226, you're talking about a pistol that's now 1 pound 12 ounces. So you're talking about a pistol that's almost 7 ounces more in weight. And then the final one is the old standby, the Glock the 1911 45, which comes in at 2 pounds 3 ounces. And then finally, Glock came up with concealment options, which is the Glock 43, which comes in at right around a pound. So you can see the weight differences as well as the size differences between the old larger frame service pistols and the Glock 19. And we're going to talk about what you give up by moving from these frames, because clearly these frames are heavier, which makes them a little bit more stable, but it's also hard to carry larger pistols like this around with you with what you do. And that gets into weight comparisons, which we just went through, but it also gets into concealment as well. One of the things I've noticed when I've talked to my friends that are in the MARSOC as well as the Navy Special Forces units is a lot more of their operations are becoming non-uniformed operations. They're typically wearing street clothes and stuffing their pistols and their magazines and their equipment into a lot of their street and or their regular clothing. So even little bits of size differences in the pistols makes a big difference when it comes to concealability. So again, if you're talking about a Navy SEAL who has a P226 compared to a Glock 19, it's a lot easier to fit, even with the small difference, a Glock 19, for example, into your pocket of your pants as opposed to a SIG P226. Same thing with a M9 as well as a 45. So there's some trade-offs there, but they don't want to go obviously too small with the Glock 43. As you can see here, this is a really good civilian option for concealed carry. It's not only is it a narrower frame, but it's also a smaller frame to work with. But the problem you give up here is you have a 6-round magazine that comes with the Glock 43. If you're in the military special forces and you're going to use this both for concealment as well as general combat use, you want to have at least 15 rounds like you've always had in your M9 and your P226, which is what you have in the Glock 19. So you're not giving up any more round count, you're actually giving up weight, and you have more concealability for the pistol, making it a very, very versatile pistol compared to a lot of the other options that are on the table. The second thing to keep in mind with these pistols it's important to remember that a handgun is a secondary weapon system. And a lot of times when people go into training and they talk about this in military stuff, they basically will tell you that your secondary weapon, your pistol, is only used to get you to your primary weapon system, which is your shotgun or your rifle. And I think a lot of times we tend to fixate on the capabilities of the pistol, but the reality is the pistol is, in many cases, and in most cases it should be, an emergency backup system to your primary weapon system. Whether it goes down, you lose it, it jams, what have you, that's where these things become important. So it's important to understand too where these fall into utilization. And then the final piece of the puzzle is accuracy. So a lot of people are going to argue, well, you know what, I don't want to give up my P226 or my 45 or even my 17 for a 19 because I'm going to be giving up accuracy. So one of the things I did was I went to the range and did a number of accuracy counts with the actual pistol, and I compared them to a number of different pistols on the table. So the first one is shot at 30 feet with the SIG P226 as well as 50 feet. So this is the old Navy SEAL model, and I wanted to see at 30 feet and 50 feet how well it performed. Obviously a very tight group at 30 feet compared to 50 feet. Now let's take a look at that in comparison, for example, to a Glock 17 at 30 feet and a Glock 19 at 50 feet. So when we're looking at this top group here compared to these groups, the Glock 17 is very similar as well as the 19. You could argue that the SIG is a little bit tighter group, but the one thing to remember with all the SIG groups I fired is I fired them all with the trigger cocked back. I did not do the double single action. And if I guarantee you, if I had to do that first shot as a double action, I would have probably had one off target or a flyer around here somewhere relative to the group itself. With the Glocks, you don't have to do that. Again, it's just one simple operation to pull the trigger one time every time. So this is a comparison of the groups that we had at 30 feet. And then I also had a group at 50 feet. So this is the lower part here for the SIG P226 compared to the Glock 17 as well as the Glock 19. Again, I fired a little bit tighter group at 50 feet with the Glock 17 over the SIG as well as the Glock 19. But again, very marginal differences at best in the performance of the pistols. Then I took it out a little bit farther to 70 feet to see how well, for example, on the Navy SEAL side, how did this SIG P226 perform compared to the Glock 19? And again, when you look at the differences in the group and the size of the groups, again, there's almost no difference in the performance of the Glock 19 as opposed to the SIG P226. And again, the SIG was fired single action. 70 feet, I also compared that to the Glock 17, Glock 19. Again, the 17 I fired a little bit tighter than the 19. And then finally I did one-handed groups at 20 feet for the SIG. Again, starting single action, not double action, otherwise I would have probably had one off. One-handed with the Glock 19 as opposed to the SIG P226. Ironically, the first group, or the first one I had that was a little bit off the grouping here, was my first shot with the Glock 19. And again, had to go double single on this group, I would have probably had the same thing. So is there any real difference between the performance of the SIG P226 and the Glock 19, at least insofar as how I shoot pistols and how they're performing? No, there really isn't. So the final thing people are going to bring up then is the ballistics and having a 9mm, and what does that mean? Well, the first thing is the technology of the cartridges used now for 9mm have improved dramatically over the years. In fact, the three that I prefer the most are the Federal Premium. These are the HST Tacticals. These come at about 1,150 feet per second on a 24 grain bullet. I really love the Underwood ammo. They make a gold dot jacketed hollow point for 147 grain, moving at about the same speed. And then, of course, the old fail-safe that a lot of police departments carry, which is the standard plus P 9mm 124 grain gold dot. So again, these are all excellent pistol cartridges. And it brings up one other topic about the 9mm cartridge, which I don't want to spend too much time on today, but a lot of people still fixate on, you know, what's the better cartridge. All pistols are underpowered, but when you're talking about a secondary weapon system, and most of these are used within very close situations, a lot of the training that the Special Forces use, especially that I've been told about, or many of them will actually train for headshots, multiple headshots. So you could argue all day how much stopping power is there on the 9mm cartridge, no matter what you're shooting. And in the military, in most cases, they're shooting the full metal jacketed rounds, so they don't have the hollow point capabilities, which many civilians have, but rather standard Army issue tends to be the full metal jacket hollow points, or the full metal jacket rounds. But the difference is, yeah, if you fire that into the human silhouette, there's an understandable difference in stopping power between some of the other cartridges. However, when you fire this as a headshot, especially on multiple headshots, one round, no matter what it is, 9mm, whether it be a full metal jacket or a hollow point, one well-placed round into the head, the gunfight is over. It's that simple. And a lot of the training that takes place with the Glock 19 is actually involved just with that, because a lot of people now are, especially a lot of the enemies in the battlefield now are utilizing body armor, so no matter, a lot of these rounds are ineffective, so a lot of these shots now are being taken either low or high, either into the head or below. So the final thing is on the Glock 19. This is my old standard Glock 19 with my traditional $4 grip job. I have another video on that. You also can utilize, for example, the new MOS versions that come with the removable plate, so that you can actually put a red dot optic onto the Glock 19. It's up to you. There's a separate video I did on my Glock 17 where I had both an MOS as well as a standard, and I did some shot comparisons and really didn't see any difference in accuracy, at least for me, on the MOS. But if you're so inclined as to really want to doctor up your 19 and buy an MOS and put a red dot on there, that's great. But just watch the first video I had on the Glock 17 before you do that, so you know what your trade-offs are or what you're giving up and what I've received from that. So that's the final review of the Glock 19. Again, it's the one pistol I usually recommend people buy as their first pistol. It's a great value, highly versatile. Clearly, many of our top military forces are adopting these, and they're doing so for a reason. And as a civilian, again, you'll be hard pressed to find a better pistol all around for the money. So I hope this helps. If you like our channel, please subscribe, and thanks for watching.